السنة مثل سفينة نوح، من ركبها نجا ومن تركها غرق.
الحمد لله الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. As to what proceeds, after praising Allah the Most High, separated from His creation in a manner which befits His Majesty, with love and veneration solely for Him, and asking Him to send His salah and salam upon the final messenger and prophet, Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Qurashi. Once again we meet again for our weekly meeting on Al-Usul ath-Thalathah. The issue which is under discussion is the madkhal, or the preface of Al-Usul ath-Thalathah. And we are coming to the end of this discussion, where we are currently going through some important issues which we have called at-Tanbihat. We have covered or discussed 3 from amongst them, and today inshallah we will discuss the 4th. So at-Tanbih al-Rabi' is that it is befitting for the one who explains Al-Usul ath-Thalathah that the commentator and those who are studying under him, that they keep in mind the greatness of this subject and the important goals and objectives of the subject, which is in reality, as explained, the core message of the prophets alayhimus salatu wassalam, meaning that the core message of Al-Usul ath-Thalathah is identical to the core message which was conveyed and given by the prophets and the messengers who preceded the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And a common consensus amongst them was that their understanding of at-Tawheed and calling to it. So this was something which was common amongst all the prophets and the messengers. From the time of Adam alayhi salam, the father of mankind, to the last prophet and messenger, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, except that the shara'i', or the laws, Islamic laws that were given to them in their subsidiary issues, they differed. And these laws that differed from nation to nation was due to the benefit of the people of that time and that region. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed and legislated for them laws which were befitting and appropriate for them within their ability and capacity. So keep this in mind, that the laws of the previous prophets and messengers may have differed, but their aqeedah and their tawheed and the call of Tawheed was one. So it is obligatory upon the student of knowledge, as well as the teacher, the commentator, the Sharih, that he adopts this technique or this methodology in explaining and discussing the issues that can be found within this book, which is to highlight to the students that this book is a follow-up of all the prophets and the messengers, of what they called to, what they stood for, what they disputed with, and what they defended. So when the student and the teacher, when their objective becomes the same objective of the author, and when the author's objective is the same objective of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's objective was the same objective that can be found from the time of Nuh to his time, alayhimus salatu wassalam, then the objective and the goals being one will result in the results and the fruits being one. So if the objectives differ with the objective of this book, then the results will be different. And it should also be kept in the student's mind as well as the teacher, that they don't serve the purpose, or their purpose of studying this book is not that its objective is different, and then they don't serve a different objective. Is that clear for what I have said so far? This is a very important point, because we see that many study and teach this text, but the objectives and the goals are different. The goal must be one. The goal must be the intended goal intended by the author as well as those who preceded him. So therefore, sometimes you will see that this text, Al-Usul ath-Thalathah, is taken by many as a means to serve their crooked and evil objective. Their objective is not to teach this text, or their objective and the author's objective is different. They have a personal agenda, a hidden agenda. And a typical example that can be given is the study of the classical text that can be found. A classical text of Aqidah that can be found, which is known as al-Aqidah al-Tahawiyah. Yes, does everybody know of this text? Has everybody heard of this text, al-Aqidah al-Tahawiyah? The Mubtadi'ah, the heretics, Ahlul Bidah, they also teach this text. The Asha'ira, the Maturidiyah, the Barelwiyah, and the Diyubandiyah, the Sufiyah, they all explain this text, as well as many of the scholars of the Sunnah also explain this text. This is something which cannot be denied, something which is factual. But how can it be so that the exact same text is utilized and taught by the people of Sunnah as well as the people of bid'ah. This clearly highlights to us that the objective of the people of Sunnah and the people of bid'ah is different and differs. So Ahlul Bid'ah teach this text being subjective or objective with the intention of serving their bid'ah or their heresy. But the text is exactly the same. So what is their text? What is their objective? Their objective is to teach their beliefs, is to serve their beliefs. So a text can be utilized for the wrong purpose and with an agenda and with a wrong objective. So just because you see somebody teaching al-Usul ath-Thalathah or quoting from al-Usul ath-Thalathah or any other book, that does not make him Mr. Right, nor does that necessitate that his objective is exactly the same objective of the author. And it is for this reason that I find that in the West, people use al-Usul ath-Thalathah as a springboard, as an alibi to lure the people into their crooked ways and hidden agendas. And when argued with many, they will say, well, the brother or so-and-so is teaching al-Usul ath-Thalathah, he's teaching the books of Aqeedah, he's teaching the books of Sunnah. So this is an important point for you to understand. And this can be clearly highlighted when the Sharih, the one who explains this text, where you clearly, with transparency, see his objective and the objective of the author and those who came before him. Now the students understanding this important point, which may have not been mentioned by many before. So you have those who also teach this text theoretically. Theoretically, what do I mean by the theoretical aspect of it? Meaning that they teach it on the basis of just either mere memorization or mere comprehension. But when it comes to the implementation, the amaliyah, or tatbiq of this text, meaning put it into practice in their daily lives, then you will see that the same people who teach this text will sit with people of bid'ah and shirk. And we'll have no issues with that. And this is a khalil. But they teach this text. So when you find that classical texts are explained with a different motive or a hidden agenda or a different objective and goal, and then that they are read and that they are memorized and that they are studied, that the end result is that they will in reality have no real benefit. Because al-ilm, knowledge, is amana, is a trust. And al-mutun al-ilmiyah, the classical texts that we have, are also an amana, a trust. And the maqasid, the goals of its author, are also an amana, a trust. The issues that are discussed or the pertaining discussions that can be found within the book or the text are also a trust. But for the one who may not be conscious of these affairs due to his ignorance or forgetfulness, then there is no harm upon him. But if you find somebody who is explaining this text, and I know individuals in the UK who teach this text, but their objectives are clearly outlined not to be the objectives of the author. Rather, they use this text as an alibi to serve and establish the hidden goals and agenda. And for the ones who do this with this intention, deceiving the people, tricking the people, using the innocent as their prey, then in reality they have not fulfilled the trust of knowledge that they took upon themselves. In other words, we can say that this person is a fraud, is a kha'in, is a kadhib, is a liar upon the text which he is teaching. So we find that there are those who use this, who may use a classical text to cultivate their audience upon bigoted partisanship, hizbiyah, or a call of jahiliyyah, or to shaken the hearts by calling them to the way of takfir, labeling everybody as a disbeliever, or some form of chaotic movement, or things similar to this. And those who do this and who use these classical texts as an alibi are in reality frauds when it comes to ammadatul ilm, the trust that they have been entrusted with this knowledge. Because what will be the result of this? For example, Al-Usul ath-Thalathah, for a takfiri who quotes and teaches the matan or the text of Al-Usul ath-Thalathah, he will ascribe all his fabrication and forgery towards the da'wah of Shaykh al-Wahha, rahimahullah ta'ala, and he will claim that what he is teaching and what he understands is what was taught and understood and conveyed by Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala. And Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala and scholars are similar to him. Those who illustrated books in the area of, or in the discipline of Aqidah, are free from this fabrication and forgery. So this was the fourth point, or the fourth tanbih. I don't know what was agreed upon to translate at-tanbih in the English language. I haven't looked at its derivatives or an appropriate word, quotations. So that's the fourth one complete. Before we move on to the fifth one, are there any questions with regards to the fourth? And that's why I say that the levels of deception in the West are on a next level that even you can be eluded by a text. Can you see the dangers of who you should be very careful of who you take? And I know takfiris out, clear-cut takfiris in London who teach Al-Usul ath-Thalathah. And I've even seen new Muslims thinking that these Muhammad Wahhab and this is the call of as-Salafiyah. And people they go and they study with such individuals. And they use Al-Usul ath-Thalathah to lure them so that they can deceive them. And then call them to their hidden ideology and agenda. So that's the fourth. Like I said, if a classical text of At-Tahawiyya is taught by the enemies of the people of Sunnah, who are then don't be surprised if other later texts are utilized with the same objective. With regards to the fifth tanbih, at-tanbih al-khamis, there are issues which should be given a great amount of consideration. And in addition to this, a great amount of attention should also be paid towards these issues. In addition to this, a great amount of attention should also be paid towards these issues, so that the person does not slip away and take a position which is contrary to the truth and reality. So there are certain issues which are very important for us to look into, because if we fall into error, we may ascribe this error to its author. And then after ascribing it to the author, we may even ascribe it to da'wah salafiyya. So Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala, his da'wah can be summarized in one sentence. If you are asked, what was the da'wah of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala, you can answer this question in one simple, concise sentence. Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala revived the da'wah of al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, or he was a reviver who revived ad-da'wah salafiyya. That's it. That's how simple it is. Now, a person who has a problem with Muhammad Abdul Wahhab has a problem with da'wah salafiyya. A person who doesn't have a problem with Muhammad ibn Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala doesn't have a problem with da'wah salafiyya. So all those who speak against this, against Muhammad ibn Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala, they have two options. Either they bring us quotations from the books of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, highlight them for us and show us where he has gone against the classical scholars of al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That's one option. Secondly, they refute from his works and give us the alternatives or the refutations of his works. The one that you find that talks ill of the da'wah of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala is clearly diseased. Either he is a jahil murakkab, a muta'alim, or he is sahibul hawa, if he knows the reality. And what we mean about some of the issues, when I said that there's some issues that we need to pay attention to, give great importance, are those issues which have been mentioned by Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala in his book, Al-Usul ath-Thalathah, where he mentioned them in a particular context. So you find that Muhammad bin Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned these issues in a particular context, in a particular condition, a pretext. Then it is unappropriate, or it can be considered to be a deficiency, that the speech or what was mentioned by Muhammad ibn Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala, which is connected to a particular context, be taken out of that context and given a different context contrary to that, and then say that this is what Muhammad ibn Wahhab rahimahullah said. Because the result of doing such an action, do you understand the scenario? So Muhammad Wahhab rahimahullah made a statement in a particular context. That statement or what he wrote is taken out of that context and put into a different context which is not applicable. The end result of doing such an action will be that we will ascribe an attribute to Muhammad Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah to do something or to say something which he did not intend or do. Do you understand the end result? That's what people are trying to do now. All their efforts are being exhausted in doing so. This tanbih, or this alerting, which I am telling my students who are studying with me, is even more highly stressed when we come to an issue from amongst the issue where somebody may find some form of deception or some form of ambiguity. So a person looks into an issue from amongst the issues mentioned by Muhammad Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala, and he or she dives deep into that issue. So this issue which I was discussing just now, you find an individual who tries to read upon an issue from amongst the issues which has been mentioned by Shaykh al-Isla, Muhammad Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala, and there is ambiguity or it's not clear for him. He decides to delve into this issue deep. And he's somebody who has not been cultivated or nurtured upon the correct fundamentals or foundations. He's somebody like we find يَسْتَسْرِقُونَ السَّمْعَ, take something from here and take something from here. Sometimes it's with this speaker, sometimes it's with that speaker, sometimes it's listening to this person, sometimes it's all over the place, like we find in the West, from one speaker to the other. Another problem that we have with regards to this type of an individual is that he is pessimistic or does not have the courage or the effort to return back to the grounded people of knowledge, al-ulama ar-rasikhin, or it's not from his asl, from his principle, to refer back to the people of knowledge. When? At the time of confusion, or at the time of contemporary issues. Rather, he thinks that he can independently get to the bottom of this issue. So these are current scenarios that I find many who have fallen into. So there are some who used to attend this lesson. I don't know if they ever attended, I was told. And now they are making takfir upon myself and saying that we are bootlickers, scholars for dollars, and all these slanders that they are coming with. Somebody who became a Muslim yesterday was attending, and today he's calling the Tullab al-Ilm and the scholars sellouts. And this is something which is happening. I'm talking about now, currently. Do you understand the severity of this issue? And there are so many individuals like this that can be found in the West. Hip hopping from one person to another. It is for this reason that the student of knowledge, when he reads Al-Usul ath-Thalathah, and when it comes to the issue of al-Wala wal-Bara, or the issue of jihad, or the issue of al-Hijrah, and if he has a doubt, or if he has something that is disturbing him, pestering him, due to him or her lending their ears to doubts, or going towards the doubts, or referring to literature which feeds these doubts. So a person now falls into a doubt, or looks into a doubt, and then he refers to literature or data which feeds this doubt. And then due to this doubt which is now being fed, and he's being fed out upon this doubt, his head starts to spin. Or he reads such phrases that strengthen this doubt and cement it. And then he has this doubt now which has been built. So first it started as a doubt, he dwelled into the doubt started to build, he started to look at literature, started listening to people, which this doubt was being fed, it was fed, until this doubt became strengthened and cemented. Then with this doubt now, which has become like a precept upon this mindset, he starts to flick the pages of the books so that he can find arguments for his doubt to strengthen it. And every time he comes across something which he thinks has relevancy to his doubt becomes stronger and stronger. So he may read even the works of some of the scholars, like Shaykh al-Wahha rahimahullah ta'ala, and his students. And he will perceive and comprehend those doubts, those statements, and fit them and apply them to his doubts, which has now become an ideology and a precept. And by doing so, he will then build this whole big premise of misguidance. And then he will claim that this is what also Muhammad Abdul Wahhab believes. Exactly, he believes what Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab believes, but in reality, it is what he has chosen to believe, and then he has twisted and bent and taken out of context something which Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab believes, and has said that this is what he believes also. Do you understand how these tricks of the shaitan and the whisperings of the shayateen and oneself, of how dangerous it is, how these people are doing such things? And if you want to, I'll give you two examples. So a long time ago, there was a discussion that was being discussed by the people of knowledge. And that issue was, if an enemy was to attack a Muslim country amongst the Muslim countries, is it obligatory upon the Muslim who resides in another Muslim country to leave his land in order to fight against these invaders and intruders, meaning do jihad by aiding and assisting his Muslim brothers and sisters of that country, and that he does not require the permission of the leader of his country. Does he require or he does not require permission? So do we understand the issue which was being discussed by the ulama? The issue is that Muslim country A gets attacked and invaded by its enemies. So Muslim country B, the inhabitants of that country, they want to come and join and help their Muslim brothers and sisters who are being invaded in the country by fighting with them. But do they need permission from their leader in order to do so? Or can they just come without permission? They don't need to take permission. They can just come. So after great discussion, there were certain people who tried to delve into this issue, and they came out with an incorrect understanding of the issue. They said that to establish jihad for those who are residing and are from another Muslim country, that it is not a condition for them to seek permission from the wali al-amr or the leader of their country. So this is what they said. So they said it's not a condition for those residing. And then they said that this, and they ascribed this position to one of the great scholars and imams of the Najdi Da'wah. And they said that this can be found in Ad-Durr Saniyah from the statements of Shaykh Abdurrahman ibn Hassan ibn Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab rahimahullah. He said this. And then they quoted a statement from him, by him saying, بِأَيِّ كِتَابٍ أم بأي حجة أن الجهاد لا يجب إلا مع إمام متبع هذا من الفرية في الدين والعدول عن سبيل المؤمنين والأدلة على بطلان هذا القول أشهر من أن تذكر. Volume 8, 199. So they said that their position that you don't require the permission of the leader of your country in order to go and aid and assist your brothers and sisters. And this was the position of Abdurrahman ibn Hassan. Abdurrahman ibn Hassan, the grandson of Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab. But this is not what he said. Because the correct issue is that those who are residing in country B, it is obligatory upon them to seek the permission of their leader before that they can participate in defending their brothers and sisters. This is the mas'ala which is muqarrar, that you require permission. Because if you do not require permission, then every single person will act with the act of fawda. There are many reasons what the ulama have given. So this ascription that Abdurrahman ibn Hassan ibn al-Wahhab rahimahullah said this in the Durr Saniyah is a fabrication and a lie. Why? Because the person who said this was not able to differentiate between the issues that were being discussed by the people of knowledge. So the scholar said, to establish jihad for a person who lives under the leadership and governance of an imam, and a person wishes to do jihad where he does not live or reside under the governance or the leadership of a Muslim ruler. So One that does not require permission is somebody who does not have a Muslim ruler that he is living under, has no allegiance to him. He does not require permission. So the issue was flipped. The issue is different. Two scenarios we have. Jihad done by a person who lives under the governance of an imam and does jihad without his permission, and a person who resides in a place where there is no governance or no legislation or no Muslim leader, and for him to participate. Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan was not talking about the first scenario. Rather, he was talking about the second scenario. Except for the one who does not have no imam, then he does not need to seek permission from anybody. So you will see this, how when the text is not read in its correct context, can be misrepresented and misinterpreted. And then this can be seen where Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan ibn Muhammad Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah mentions in Durr al-Saniyya, volume 8, page 169 to 204, where he said, ثُمَّ بَعْدَ الْفِرَاقِ أظهر الله إماما يجاهد في سبيل الله ويدعوهم إلى الإسلام والاجتماع عليه, where he talks about the that the act of jihad should be established. The asal is that it is established with the imam, with the leader. Now, so this was the first scenario. So have we understood how things are misrepresented and misinterpreted? Whereas the scholar was talking about a particular issue, which was it is permissible for that person to participate in jihad and defend his brothers and sisters who does not live under the governance or the legislation of a Muslim leader, whether he has no allegiance. Not that a Muslim who resides in another country under another Muslim ruler, that he does not require permission. Is that clear? Now, so the second example that I will give, and then we will stop this, is Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala talked about Hijrah in Al-Usul ath-Thalathah. He talked about Hijrah. Hijrah is the migration. There are those who misunderstood his speech when explaining what Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Wahhab rahimahullah intended, what he meant by al-Hijrah, is that they said that Muhammad Wahhab intended that Hijrah has been legislated so that people can live together, lil-ijtima', for the purpose of congregation, as a congregation. But that's not correct, because Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah did not say that Hijrah, for example, living together, when the Muslims migrated, made Hijrah from Mecca to Habasha, they made Hijrah so that they could live peacefully as a community. Correct understanding of why Hijrah in the context that was mentioned in Al-Usul ath-Thalathah is Hijrah has been legislated for the purpose that a Muslim is able to manifest his religion freely and openly, as Muhammad al-Wahhab and the other scholars before him have said, like Ibn Qudama, Ibn Hajr. He mentioned it, Tawheed al-Ilahiyyah, that a person who is not able to manifest the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala openly and freely should migrate from that land and go to a place where he can do so. So the real reason of why the Hijrah has been legislated is for that Muslim who is not able to manifest and practice his religion openly and freely. And from amongst those issues, being the first issue, is the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And based upon this, when we research on its obligation and when it's not obligation, when we research on the issue of when Hijrah becomes obligatory and when it does not become obligatory, the reason or the illah that we look around and focus on the issue of al-Hijrah is that is the Muslim able to practice his religion? The shi'ar, the landmarks of Islam, is he able to practice them publicly or not? And with all this, if he is able financially and physically, then does Hijrah become obligatory upon him or not? Or is it mustahab for him or not? Or does it become obligatory or not? This is we find. But we find that the ulama, the criteria that they set is with regards to practicing one's religion, manifesting it publicly. And this, the ruling for a Muslim on the issue of Hijrah differs from condition to condition and place to place. So if he's not able to manifest his religion publicly and openly, and then Hijrah becomes obligatory upon him if he's able to do so. But if he does not have the ability and the means to migrate and he's weak or there is obstacles, then Hijrah does not become obligatory upon him if he is not able to do so. So this is the dhabit when it comes to al-Hijrah, as mentioned by the people of knowledge. But some people, they thought that Muhammad Wahab meant that al-Hijrah is for the sake of getting together and living as a community. But that's not what Muhammad Wahab rahimahullah intended in his Risala. Well, is that clear? So there were two examples that I gave you. Now we see that the speech of the scholars is not intended, the hadaf or the goal or the objective is not exactly the same. The first, the issue of should a person require permission to participate and do jihad with his brothers and sisters whose country has been invaded if he lives in a land where there is no Muslim governance or legislation or leader. And the scholars gave a fatwa at that time of Rahman ibn Hassan, that there is no need for him. There is no need for him to have permission because he doesn't live under an allegiance to a leader. This was just a general fatwa. Obviously, there is other detailed issues to that. But they were looking at min hayth al-hukm in terms of its ruling. Well, I'm going to stop here by finishing the fifth example of the fifth at-tanbih al-khamis, and now we have sadis and sabi' and thami' and tasi' left, and we shall then inshallah start the book, maybe one more lesson if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, which will happen on Monday if Allah wills. That's why we had this lesson today, to cover that which we missed on Monday. Jazakumullahu khairah. وبارك فيكم 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 وبارك فيكم